What's the difference between intention and our actions? Intention is the idea behind what we end up doing. And action is the outward display of our internal motives. It's easy to think if we restructure our outward life that our inward life will consequently be managed. I tend to think this is backwards thinking, if not dangerously misleading, in that we are in America at least, an outward centered society. And we look to the surface as the indication of our overall health, wealth, and happiness, which is certainly part of the story. The trouble is when we put all of our stock in this outward appearance, we tend to gloss over what is underneath it all. For instance, if you are to, let's say, stop drinking excessively or being promiscuous, but you are constantly thinking about these habits or entertaining the idea of dabbling in these transgressions again, then it's different, but it's not a world of difference in that it's still consuming your attention and awareness. Since our time here is fairly limited, it's important that we try to consolidate our interior world and our exterior one as well. Meaning, try to be present in what you're doing. For instance, if you're working but constantly thinking about being home, or if you're home constantly thinking about working, you're not really present in either of those scenarios. And it would make it twice as hard for you to be effective in a domestic sense or in a professional sense. So, aligning your mind with your body is a reinventive process. Something I like about philosophy is that it gives us some baseline for our conduct in the world. My favorite discipline in philosophy is probably ethics because of its application-based nature. So we have this idea, and that's all fine and well, but if we cannot apply it in our lives, what is the practical value? We can speculate all day long, but if we can't improve the lives of our friends and loved ones, then maybe it's all for naught. If we exclusively inflate our own egos and bankrolls, well, that's certainly an age-old cautionary tale of probably evil in its most under the surface manifestation. But goodness is also not so easily distinguished. it doesn't take flashy gestures to begin mastering goodwill and charity. I think you can start small, and as long as your intention is pure and clear, this has as much positive after effect and benefit as any other gesture, possibly more positive effects than completely sacrificing everything you have and are for a cause. With charity, I know that it is important to stay balanced. I suggest that you find a cause that aligns with your interests, with a group of people who you identify with, to try to make human connections instead of financing some abstract idea. It's not meant to be a purely theoretical expenditure of your time and money. I think it's meant to be a practical use of your time here on Earth. So this Christmas season, or really any time that you feel the push to do so, think about what you can do for others. And really think about it before you do it, and think about it while you're doing it, and think about it after you've done it. We are afforded, especially later in life, the opportunity to reflect on our actions. I like to think the same is true, that we have an ability to reflect before and while we act in order to align the mind with the will, and also the heart or soul, which is not so easily explained in a psychological or cognitive sense. Our brain is basically the cerebrum, where we calculate what we want to do, and then the cerebellum that carries out this activity. But the real motivation for everything that we do is not so easily pinned down on a biological map. I think it's something deeper, if not completely outside of ourselves, or so deeply within ourselves that it is no longer part of this visible system, but is nonetheless as real as our nervous system and psychological processes.